Hey everybody, the bad pennies are back. All right, so this topic that we're going to address is an important topic. Sensitive,
and a little somber, maybe.
Yeah, but it's something that we do need to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
So we're going to talk about recovering from hardships, right?
Yes. Tragedies, things that happen happen in life because life has those things for everybody. Nobody doesn't matter where you fall on the financial scale. Everyone has hardships and tragedies, and getting through them. Getting through them is a human experience, and it's not necessarily about the resources that you have access to. And people with more money that are more successful, per se, they tend to have more access to resources. And even in those cases, it doesn't necessarily help them get through situations. And we've seen this. We've seen this happen with famous people who had tragedies happen and then couldn't seem to recover from it, couldn't seem to get through it, and it took them down. Eventually, it took them out of their power, and then took them down. So we're going to talk a little bit about it, and we're not going to talk about it again. We're not psychologists, so we're not going to talk in terms of psychology. What I will say about psychology and therapy is that it absolutely has its place, and sometimes, especially when there's a tragedy, it may actually be a viable solution, or at least a part of the viable solutions. Okay.
So getting
with a
help,
professional.
Getting help is something that is encouraged. If you feel like you're in a situation and you can't handle something on your own, get help.
If you've depressed and clinically depressed, PTSD, things like that, and know that these kinds of things happen to people when they've worked through hardships or had tragedies in their life.
Of all kinds.
The way that the brain compensates for that stuff messes with the chemistry and all kinds of stuff in your brain.
And sometimes you don't even know what's normal and what's not. It may take someone else who's trained to be able to help you identify the things that you need to get fixed.
Exactly. Now, with that being said. Okay. So know that there is a point where seeking professional help is appropriate and a good thing to do. It's the right thing to do, really.
It's the right thing.
And the field has come so far, since the 50s, which in many ways, if we look back in the 50s, they thought they had all these breakthroughs and stuff, but the truth is they kind of look at that as the dark ages now, considering how much that they actually know about treating depression and PTSD and things like that. So with that being said,
one thing you did say about some people having the means better than more of an affordability to get the help. There is help for people that can't afford help.
That's true, and a lot more than you would know. So, but again, part of getting to that help is the solution to that is something we're actually going to talk about, because we're going to talk about the things that aren't about professional help per se, all right, or getting through hardships. One of the best ways to get through things, and even once you're past through things, to get back on your feet and recovered and functioning again, is about the quality of the relationships that you have in your life. Now, we've talked about men not being lone wolves and having to have men in their life. And so because this podcast is for men, about men, so we're going to speak to that specifically. But some of this actually will bleed over, because it's not just a man thing versus a woman thing. It's a human thing. So a lot of this will cross over. But we're still going to
men suffer more silently than women do in a lot of cases. Right?
Well, of course they do, because we don't really access our emotions as easily and readily, and arguably we shouldn't, because they get in the way of our ability to do a lot of the things that we're actually asked to do.
Right.
So, but it doesn't mean that especially in a tragedy or in a hardship, that those kinds of things don't come up. And the best way to take care of that stuff, outside of something that needs to be handled professionally and clinically, is having men in your life and letting the men take care of you as you would take care of them if something happened to them.
Yeah.
All right. We're literally talking about care here. We're talking about men caring for men. And how that looks can be many, many, many different ways. And I'm going to bring an example. I have a really good friend who was playing the crazy ass game with a bunch of men, and he got hurt. And but he got badly hurt. He got badly hurt, physically hurt, and which required a long hospital stay. And because he worked in a field that was physical, he couldn't work for over a whole year. He was down, and he was the only income winner,
sole breadwinner
in his house. Yep, he was the sole breadwinner and or sole income.
Yeah.
And so what happened was the men in his life got together and they decided that they were going to pay his mortgage and feed his family for the next year until he could get to work again. Powerful, huh? And they did it.
Honorable.
And nobody told them they had to do it. Nobody made them do it. There weren't any rules that said this is how you have to be.
Yeah.
Right? There was no manual that was written that says this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. And it wasn't, because if it was just a couple of them, it was just a couple of men, they wouldn't have been able to afford it. Right? But this was like a community of men. This is like 25, 30 men came together, and they paid his mortgage and took care of all of the expenses for his family until he was able to go back to work. So, because there wasn't, his medical bills were taken care of, but not the living deal was unable to happen. And so they just stepped up.
Without even being asked.
Nobody asked him. Nobody asked him.
They got together with each other and said, hey, this is what we need to do.
And it was initially very difficult for him to receive it.
Understandable.
It was very, very difficult for him to receive it. So our pride and our egos will often not want, because we'll say, oh, I don't want charity. Right? So we're not talking about charity. We're talking about human beings taking care of other human beings. Mm-hmm. And it is outside of when, again, you need professional assistance, outside of anything professional, it is the way that human beings take care of other human beings, and have for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Thousands of years. A man in you go back 10,000 years, and a man in the village got hurt. He got taken care of. His family got taken care of. Nobody worried about where their next meal was going to come. Everyone pitched in. Everybody, made sure that everything got handled, and nobody thought twice about it. See, that's the thing. Today, everyone goes, "Oh, I don't know. It's
Do you think those quality friendships are alive in today's society?
Yes, I do. I think that in some places they are still alive, but I think that across, in a general sense, we've lost a lot of that. We've definitely moved away from that sense of small village.
Yeah.
As we've become bigger and bigger cities, it's become more impersonal. We know fewer people. We're not as close to as many people anymore. In many cases, You have a family, and you want to talk about go back and watch the last couple podcasts about kids moving away, but the kids move away, right? Traditionally, the kids move away instead of staying on the farm. It's a problem in a lot of parts of the world right now where traditionally children stayed in the village. They stayed in the town, and they took the jobs that the older people couldn't do anymore, and then they had kids, and those kids took the jobs as they got older, and so there's this continuous workforce that fills all the needs of the town, of the village, right? And whether it's a farming deal or whatever it is that they produce, what they do to be productive, that's how it has worked for centuries, if not thousands of years. And now children are moving away, and there's no workforce replacing the older people when they can't work anymore, and it's a problem. And so we're seeing, even in the world, things that we used to be able to go and buy on a shelf, and it's not there anymore. And one of the reasons that some of those things are not there anymore is the place where it was made doesn't make it anymore, or can't make enough for it to even get to the shelf. They only make it for local consumption. So this is just this huge shift of people moving away, families moving, splitting apart. My family's very broken, very, very broken, and all over the place. And so it was very difficult. When my dad was dying, when my mom was dying, we were thousands of miles away, and to when you're there, you don't leave your job to take care of them, right? You're able to continue to take care of them and still be productive and take care of the family and do the things you got to do. When families get all spread apart, now in order to go take care of a parent, you may have to leave your job for months on end, and of course that doesn't work. Not only just from the fact that you're not making any money, but the people that you work for aren't going to be particularly happy about you just leaving them. I left a job for a week before my dad passed away. My dad passed away while I was on a big job, and I got a phone call saying, look, he may not live the week if you want to see him before he's gone. And I was on a really big job, and I marched into my boss's office and said, I've booked a plane flight. I'm going home. I'm spending the next week with my dad, and I'll be back because my dad's dying. And they were so pissed off. They were so ungracious and angry, as if I was doing this to them, right? As if I was purposely doing something to hurt them, right? And that's how they took it. And I said, if you fire me, I will understand. I told them, I just said, look, if I get fired because of this, I understand, but I'm going to see my dad before he dies. And I did. And I went home, and I came back to the job. They didn't fire me, but they didn't talk to me for a while, or they were very, it was, talk about curt, very, very short sentence conversations. And then I got written up. They put stuff in my file about how I, don't know how to honor contracts and things like that. I mean, it was crazy, the reaction that they had to doing the right thing. Okay. And it's not like I wanted to leave them in the lurch. In fact, I didn't actually. I did things to make sure that during the time that I was gone, that the things that needed to happen took place, right? So I didn't just drop everything. But in some ways I did, because I wasn't there. Okay. So, but it was a great way of seeing how this happens all across the country and the world even. When families are broken up, there's no base to take care of people through hardship anymore. And even to do that, even if a family does that, it puts hardship on them,
Okay.
It becomes a hardship on the people taking care of the people going through a hardship.
Yeah.
And so we're in this like catch-22 space of not taking care of each other or trying to figure out how to negotiate it.
Yeah.
So that's one way. Family itself is one way, but having a community, and that can be on us. That's not something that happens outside of you. In order to have a community, you got to become part of a community. You've got to be a contributor to a community. So, and when I say community, right now I'm literally speaking about a community of men, having men in your life, men that you care about, men that you would do that for, like my friend who got taken care of for a whole year, right? Everything. He couldn't even drive or anything. They went to his house and they carried him and put him into a vehicle and took him to his because he couldn't walk. They took him to his doctor's appointments and brought him back, and they took their kids out and they did all kinds of stuff for them, and they made sure that the family stayed viable. And so this thing that happened didn't take them out, which it could have done. It could have, and it takes people out when you don't have a community to take care of you, and that's outside of even just the psychological ramifications, right?
I was just about to say, like, there's a lot of introverts in the world nowadays.
Yeah.
That can't be a good thing for this scenario.
And so it's you can't, as much as we like to do stuff alone, and I'm probably speaking to every man that's listening to this, or who will ever listen to this. Of course, you like to do things alone, but your ability to do things alone well is still predicated on the kind of relationships and the quality of relationships that you have with men in your life, because the men in your life will help prepare you to be successful doing those things alone. It's you don't just magically are capable of doing that.
Yeah.
Right. So there's still that place where there are the things that you can't do alone. And if you set that up, starting now, right? If you haven't, start now. Right? You don't have to worry about the fact that you haven't yet. Just start now. And for the men that have already done that, great. Continue and develop. And remember that when you're not doing things alone, the parts of your life that you don't do alone, that you do with other men, right? That you're there of service. That's what makes a community a community.
Yeah.
It isn't about a bunch of people getting together to see what they can get from everybody else. You know how that is, right? We call them the takers. You get the taker that shows up in the community but doesn't really want to be part of the community. He just wants to figure out what the community has for him. Right.
There's one in every
what is it? So enough about me. What do you have for me? What can you do for me?
Yeah.
So they're always about themselves. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a community where, like, that man, I know that he was a very viable part of that community of those men that took care of him, and he would have done the same thing without thought. In fact, I think he even had done something similar in the past. They all are willing to take care of each other and be of service all the time. And that's how you have to be. And when there is a hardship, when there is a tragedy, then you have a way of taking care of it, a way of getting through it, working through it, both physically and psychologically.
So is there ever a point where it's okay for a man to work through hardship on his own?
I think that would be a real mistake.
So either you're going to get professional help or you're going to be with your tribe and your community, but this isn't really a thing where, we're talking about all kinds of hardships.
Well, okay, so let's talk about working through it on your own. All right?
Yeah.
I would never say that you couldn't.
You just wouldn't recommend it.
I just said basically you shouldn't. Okay. But here's the difference. And this is why I say you shouldn't, but that doesn't mean you're not going to, right? Because it's your choice. If you want to work through it on your own, you can do that. there's no playbook and nobody holding a gun to your head saying, don't do it alone or else, right? Yeah. So working through it alone, you'll probably get there 5, 10, 15 years to work through this stuff on your own, right? It'll take you a while.
And it'll probably be a lot worse.
And you will have some pretty bumpy times still. And so working stuff out on your own can be done, arguably can be done. But it's going to take you a long time, maybe 20 years. Maybe you'll finally get it all worked out in 20 years.
Yeah.
Or you can not do it alone and get it done in 6 months or a few days or a year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't think men like inefficiency. I think as a whole, we actually appreciate efficiency because we want to move. The way we do things so often is just one thing at a time. So we just want to get that thing done so we can get on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So we want to be as efficient as possible to get it done to the best of our ability. And so that we can move on to whatever the next thing is and get that done and then get that done. So efficiency is definitely a part of the equation, right?
Right.
That we're aware of. So when it comes to stuff like this, though, again, when the ego gets involved and it says, "Oh, I don't want charity," or "I'm my own man," or "I can do this on my own," it's the same man that won't stop and ask for directions.
Yeah. And
drives the family around for hours, completely lost.
Yeah.
And when a 3-minute direction conversation would have solved the whole problem, right? So for the half of the human race that values efficiency, that's not efficient.
Right.
That's the opposite. It's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
And that's how our ego literally gets in the way of being a good man. And it doesn't mean that you don't use your ego in appropriate places, but even getting through hardship that we're talking about, when the ego gets engaged, it will prevent you from doing the things that will get things done on a expeditious, efficient, viable, and effective process, right? Because you want it to be effective. You want to get through it well. You want to come out the other end better.
Yeah.
Right? Not just where you were before. I've heard that before. That doesn't exist in life.
No, you got to come out, but you learn a lesson from it. My biggest thing about hardship, everybody's going to go through something, but you have to fight through it. You have to fight for something better.
Yeah.
If you just accept it, that's what will lead you to a depression, and that's what leads you to a downward spiral. But if you come across, it could be a financial hardship, a personal hardship, it could be something professional, whatever it is, you have to fight. And if you fight alone, then you fight harder. But if you fight with a group, then the fight is so much easier.
It is, and it's exponential. And it's the same thing in a marriage, because you're doing things together, and when you're really of service to each other, the energy that's produced is exponential. It's not the sum of its parts.
No.
It's the same thing working with other men. It's an exponential situation here, not just the sum of everyone, added up. So, and again, that whole ego thing will get in your way. That desire to be the lone wolf will get in your way. But if you're aware of it, and I mean, the reason that we're mentioning this is so that you are aware of that, and it's no shame because it comes up for all of us, right? But the ability to punch through it, the ability to stay on the fight, the good fight. The good fight is the fight to be the best man that you can possibly be, the fight to take care of your family, the fight to stand up for what you know is right,
and step up for others,
and be a stand for humanity.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about your man who was injured and he had help from his group of men that helped him. but also being one of those men to help that man who needed the help without expecting something from it.
Nobody ever asked for anything back, and they were very clear about it.
Yeah,
they were very clear that this was that under no circumstances was he to. What they expected was that when he was fully able to function and get back to work and stuff, that he would continue to be a full-fledged, part of that circle of men, just as he always had been. And that if it happened to somebody else, that he would be part of taking care of them. And that was the only payment that they really would have expected.
Yeah. But and that's a big part of it too. I don't want to say it in a way where it sounds like selfishness, but you give so much because you never know when you're going to need to get some back.
Well, but that's not the reason you give.
No, and like I said, I don't want to sound selfish behind it, but like you give.
And look, it's there's. I don't think I want to get into leadership training here, but there is a formula in leadership where we talk about give, take, or ask. Not even take. It's just give, ask, right? And but I'm not sure that applies here. I think that you are just of service to be of service.
Be of service.
That's it. You give because that's who you are, and that's what you do, and that's what the right thing is to do. And who knows? I mean, look, it's. I think for me personally, the times that I had hardship, we all have hardship, right? I said that, right? It happens. We all go through stuff. Yeah. We have tragedies. I've had tragedies. I've had hardships. And the help that I got was a surprise.
Yeah.
I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
I never expected, even though that I had, I've done tons and tons of community service in my life. I set up charities and 501c3s, and we've done all of these kinds of things to take care of others and been of service to others, and for not just for a year, but for decades, right? Decades of service, and if nothing ever happened and none of that ever came back, it wouldn't have made any difference. I wouldn't think twice about it, because that's just the way to be. It's just the way to be. So when things did happen and people took care of me, right? And when I say people, it wasn't just men. There were women that were involved too, and but the men mostly. And so, but when men stepped up and took care of me, I was very humbled. It was touching. It was deeply touching, and the part of us that thinks that do we actually deserve being taken care of like that?
Yeah.
And so I don't know whether I was embarrassed, but I was certainly taken back, and it wasn't anything that I expected anybody to do.
Right.
But that's the beauty of this, and that's the beauty of having a community, and being a viable part of the community. So that's the best the best way to get through tragedy and hardship is with your community of men. Right? It's the best way to do it. Other than, again, the
professional help,
professional component, if that needs to happen.
Yeah.
And if it does, then avail yourself. There's no shame in that either. There used to be great shame in getting psychological help. It was a stigma.
Yeah.
And I think it still is a little bit. There may be a little stigma. But even in the military, they pretty much, even if you were ordered, say your sergeant said, look, you had a near-death experience, and I'm ordering you to go see the base psychologist, right? So you've been ordered, so you have to go. You go see the base psychologist, you spend 15 minutes in his office, you tell him what happened. He said, all right, well, are you feeling any anxiety, blah, 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 blah. No, actually, everything seems to be pretty good. Great, if anything changes, let me know. Good, you're out. He takes that report, he puts it in your file, and you never get promoted again. Because that's how they handled it. It was considered that you were broken because you went and even had a conversation with a mental health professional. That's nuts. I'll say it straight up. That is absolute nuts. It's erroneous thinking, and it's not true.
Yeah.
In fact, what's happened is that we've had men and women who were very, very mentally disturbed continue to behave inappropriately for a long period of time until things got really, really bad and something really terrible happened because they never went and got any kind of help to diffuse the situation.
Yeah.
And they didn't go because if they did, then that stigma would last forever, right? So we got to get past that. We got to get past the fact that everyone, arguably everyone at some point in their life, could use a little professional. Just sometimes it's just having somebody listen, right? But again, you may not need that if you have men that you can go to and just tell them what's on, get it off your chest.
Yeah.
And maybe that just will, preempt anything getting so bad as to needing professional help. But again, don't take it. I didn't see the letters going like, you're saying that we don't need professional help.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's a good thing to have people in your life.
Yeah.
And so do that.
I think
and get out of the house, you kids that are 25.
Introverts. I think one of the biggest things is don't give up.
Definitely don't give up.
Find the fight, find the solution. It could be with other people, it could be with the professionals, it could be just your perseverance to see yourself through it.
Yeah, and
don't give up.
Life finds a solution, and if you're willing to let it.
Yeah.
If you're willing to let it, and again, the worst thing that happens is trying to get through it all by yourself.
Yeah.
We're social organisms, so be social.
There you go.
Right? Even you men, we want to do it alone.
There you go. All right, everybody. This was a tough one, but we made it through. Thank you very much.
We did. We didn't even know how we were going to talk about this.
Yeah. I think we made it, though.
I think we did. I hope you got value out of it.
Yeah. And let us know in the comments.
Yeah, give us more than a thumbs up. If you give us a thumbs up, tell us why.
Yeah. But we appreciate you. And we'll see you next time. Bad Pennies will be back.
Yeah. We have hundreds of viewers, right? We have, if not thousands. We just don't know who's repeating.
Right.
But arguably, we have thousands of viewers, and we appreciate all of you.
Yeah.
The thousands of you that are watching this podcast and
thank you very much
supporting our work.
Yeah. Until next time, everybody.